Hi, friends in conflict. This week, I want to discuss the impact that our workplace conduct can have on conflict and culture. Let me start by saying I love surveys and polls that are anonymous because they offer us a more accurate picture of what people truly feel and believe and intend. Without anonymity, we risk having our opinions scrutinized within incomplete context or unclearly viewed through the lens of others' perceptions and assumptions of our own motives. There's no judgment in anonymity, but there is also really no meaningful solution. Anonymity can be like taking the pulse of an unconscious person. If their pulse is too slow or too fast, but they're not able to answer questions, then well meaning responders could have real difficulty in identifying ways to regulate the pulse in a healthy manner. So, as much as I like surveys and the resulting statistics, what I really love is using surveys to make the case to apply specific measures that will address what the surveys actually find. It is in the personal application, after all, that approaches and practices can impact meaningful change. As a conflict professional, I weirdly enjoy the challenge of identifying and addressing conflict. When I started mediating family and workplace disputes many years ago, it made me more mindful of my own contribution to conflict in my relationships, my personal relationships. Sadly, it did not, and it does not, make me immune to having my own conflict. Just ask my poor wife. What it does do is provide opportunities for improvement and for greater satisfaction. It takes work, but it's work that I advocate for all persons at home and in the workplace to do. Specifically, the work is this: become more aware of conflict around us and of our contribution to it so that we can respond in healthy ways. This brings me to a Gallup survey from May of 2024 that I recently read. Gallup surveyed 21,500 US employees approximately and found that nearly 1 in 4 of those employees had firsthand knowledge of unethical behavior in the last year. Gallup describes unethical behavior as, quote, varying widely in severity from disparaging a coworker to securities fraud, unquote. I would add that it could be dishonesty, favoritism, harassment, whatever its form. Unethical behavior can lead to serious conflict, and that affects both the morale and the productivity of any team or organization. In fact, I just consider unethical behavior to be another form of conflict, and conflict is simply a perceived competition or gap between values. This competition of values could be demonstrated between a number of employees, or between an employee and a manager, or between a number of managers, or executives and boards of directors. It could be between any combination of stakeholders within a group, within an organization. And that includes the target audience of that organization, be they clients, customers, members, other entities. If addressed, there's a very real cost to conflict. It creates a toxic environment where trust erodes and teams become divided and productivity suffers. Now, returning to the survey, what's interesting is that it shows that less than half of those who had knowledge of unethical behavior actually reported it. That's less than 10% of all the employees in the survey. Of those who did report it, only half of them reported it directly to their manager. That's only about 5% of all the employees in the survey who reported the unethical behavior to their direct manager. And the reasons that only half of those with knowledge of the behavior report it to their manager may not be very surprising, but they may be a symptom of lacking trust. 22% of those who did not report it to their manager didn't do it because they thought no action would be taken. Another 20% were afraid of retaliation. Another 9% had a poor experience previously reporting an issue. Those three statistics taken together make up about 51% of the employees who had firsthand knowledge of unethical behavior. Over half of the employees with that knowledge lack enough trust in their manager or in their organization to report it. They don't trust that anything positive will come of it. Well, if the core issue is that there's not sufficient trust on teams and in organizations, then the best place to start addressing that issue is with the current team members, managers, and senior leaders. Ignoring conflict in the form of unethical behavior does not make it go away. The idea that you don't speak of, you don't hear, you don't see the unethical behavior or the conflict doesn't mean it's not there. It's occurring. So we need to address it. And the best way to address unethical behavior and to gain trust and build engagement and retention is to start by setting clear standards. This begins with a comprehensive code of conduct that outlines acceptable behaviors and the consequences for unethical actions. Make sure that every employee, from new hires to senior leaders, understands the company's expectations, and then reinforce those values through regular training and communication. I'm going to discuss ways that 3 different stakeholder groups can take specific measures to address unethical behavior and make a positive contribution to the creation of organizational trust. And the first of those 3 groups is the HR team. The first thing the HR team can do is to draft that code of conduct. They need to create the policies and make sure that those are in the employee handbooks in order for anybody to refer to those. But then they need to communicate those policies, not once, but multiple times. Communicate, re-communicate, and communicate again what the policy is and why it matters. The HR team can provide anonymous means of reporting firsthand behavior. The employees need a mechanism for reporting that behavior that may involve their own manager. Importantly, if the HR team receives a report of unethical behavior, they must act on it. If not reported anonymously, they at least need to keep the reporting employee informed on progress on any investigations. And finally, the HR team can train the managers to hold meaningful check-ins with employees and to respond appropriately to any reported behavior. The next stakeholder group that I wanted to speak of is the managers. Managers have the opportunity to first check their own behavior and make sure that they are not engaging in unethical behavior. They can invite input from team members about their perception of behavior. Then managers can complete training to hold meaningful check-ins with the employees and to respond appropriately to any reported behavior. That training is key. Take advantage again, as I said, of any available resources. And then finally, the managers need to take any reports seriously and follow the policies that have been established and communicated by the HR team. The last of these 3 stakeholder groups that I wanted to discuss are the senior and executive leaders. They have the greatest opportunity to model ethical behavior. They can demonstrate integrity and fairness in their own decision-making and comportment and interactions with managers and with other employees. Importantly, these senior and executive leaders in their decision-making positions can invest in people. They can pay for the resources, be that HR staff, policy development, training, etc., to demonstrate their commitment to a culture of trust. And then finally, those senior leaders can empower the HR team and the managers to respond to any reports of unethical behavior. So managing unethical behavior is not just an HR task, as I pointed out. It's an organizational commitment. By setting clear standards and encouraging open communication and leading by example, you can reduce conflict and build a more harmonious, ethical place. Thanks. I'll see you all next week.